Gary, a troubled movie actor, is struggling with life after his girlfriend left him. One day, in a moment of anger and confusion, he opens his garage door, drags out his BBQ grill, and douses it with an inflammable liquid. He sets it on fire, watching the flames with a mix of rage and despair. Gary then gets into his black car, chugging from a bottle of wine as he drives through the streets. Ignoring the world around him, he notices multiple advertisements for his own movie on passing buses, a reminder of his once glamorous life that now feels distant and unimportant. Overcome by loneliness, Gary decides to seek out some company. He stops by a group of punks and asks them if they have any crack. After reassuring them that he isn't a cop, they hand him a small pouch of the drug. He takes it, drives off, and spots a hooker crossing the street. He calls her over, showing her the crack and asking if she knows how to use it. They head to his place where, under the influence of the drug, they engage in reckless behavior, jumping around on the bed, laughing, and letting go of any remaining sense of control. Once things settle down, Gary feels a strange mix of confusion and clarity. He tries to wake the hooker, but she sleeps soundly. As he looks at himself, he notices something unsettling. He doesn't have a belly button, a symbol of birth. His lack of one makes him question his very existence. He becomes convinced that he might not be alive at all, or perhaps he is a god. He speeds to the hospital in a daze, but on the way there, something even stranger happens. He sees his own doppelganger sitting in the backseat of his car, smiling at him. As he looks closer, he notices more versions of himself, and in his confusion, he crashes his car, flipping it upside down. The police arrest Gary for driving under the influence, and he is sentenced to house arrest as a punishment for his reckless behavior. He finds himself wearing an ankle bracelet, stuck in a stranger's home since he burned down his own. The house belongs to a TV writer who is away on business, and Gary is now confined to this unfamiliar space. Margaret, a PR handler assigned to keep an eye on him, is the one who arranged for him to stay there, hoping the isolation would help him avoid the media frenzy surrounding his life. At first, Gary tries to settle into his new routine, but soon strange things begin to happen. After a steamy shower one day, Gary, wrapped in a bathrobe, begins to notice an unsettling pattern in the house. The number 9 appears everywhere, from the dice on the table to a real estate advertisement in the newspaper. At first, he tries to ignore it, but as the number keeps popping up in the most random places, Gary starts to feel paranoid. He wonders if the number is haunting him. Then one day, he finds a note in the house telling him to look for the 9s. The note is written in handwriting that matches his own, which only deepens his confusion. Next door, Gary meets Sarah, a single mother with an infant daughter. Sarah and Gary's relationship quickly grows, and he feels an unexpected connection with her. But Gary's paranoia continues to grow. He starts to see different versions of himself around the house, and the more he tries to make sense of it all, the more unhinged he becomes. One day, Gary breaks a rule of his house arrest, and Margaret steps in to make sure he stays in line. She decides to move into the house with him to keep a closer watch on his behavior. Tensions rise between them, and Gary becomes more restless. In a moment of vulnerability, Gary confides in Sarah about his fears. He tells her about the number 9 that seems to follow him everywhere in the house. Sarah offers to help him escape his house arrest, but Gary's mind is too clouded to make sense of what's happening. Things take a turn for the worse when Gary and Margaret argue one evening. Enraged, Gary decides to flee the house and break free from his punishment. But as he steps outside, something inexplicable happens. The house bursts into flames. Everything goes black, and it feels as though the very fabric of reality has been erased. The house, the number 9, and all of Gary's confusion seem to vanish in an instant. Gavin Taylor, a TV writer, meets his friend Susan with a kiss. As they catch up, Gavin talks about his new TV drama, Knowing, about a mother and daughter lost in a jungle, with the mother believing her daughter holds the key to a dark conspiracy after her husband disappears. Gavin is working hard to get the show produced, and he's already chosen his cast. His childhood friend, Melissa McCarthy, is the lead actress. Gavin is convinced she's the only one for the role, and he tells her that he's writing the show just for her. Production begins, and the filming is in its early stages. Susan gives an update to the critics, and Gavin and Melissa start making adjustments to improve the show. Gavin suggests new lines for Melissa, hoping they'll enhance the drama. When the show is finally released to an audience, they are asked for their opinions. Gavin and Susan watch from behind a glass as the audience reacts. One man in particular catches Gavin's attention. He seems to be looking directly at him. To test if it's a coincidence, Gavin waves his hand, but the man nods back. Confused, Gavin watches as the man suddenly stands up and starts yelling at him, claiming that the world they're in isn't real. The man says that Gavin is trapped in this reality with everyone else and that he needs to escape. Gavin is completely thrown off by what just happened. He wonders if the man was affected by the show or if there's something else going on. Later, Gavin, Susan, and Melissa relax with their colleagues playing guessing games. While Gavin is making a drink, Susan pulls him aside and tells him that only people who like the number 9 will appreciate the show. As the game continues, Gavin stays behind to write something down, and Susan leaves to join the others. The next day, while having lunch, Susan tells Gavin that their show isn't popular with men. She suggests that they replace Melissa with someone else, and she believes Melissa is their biggest concern. Susan proposes they meet Dahlia Salem, an actress, to replace her. Gavin refuses, insisting that Melissa is still the right choice, but Susan pushes back, saying Gavin is the one who got people involved in the project. Susan tries to convince him that replacing Melissa is necessary for the show's success, and that the director, Roger, is willing to reshoot the show with Dahlia in the lead. Gavin is shocked, but he listens to Susan's argument. Gavin eventually meets Dahlia, and they bond over the fact that they share the same birthday. However, Gavin remains unsure about replacing Melissa with Dahlia. He calls Susan to confirm if they're really going through with the change, and she gives him the go-ahead. Meanwhile, Melissa is busy practicing her lines when she gets a call confirming the purchase of her new house. Gavin arrives to take her to a cafe and breaks the news that Melissa is being replaced. At the cafe, Gavin confesses his confusion about the situation and tells Melissa that he's been feeling like he's trapped inside a show, with reality not being real at all. When he finally tells Melissa she's being replaced, her expression changes. She accuses Gavin of being incapable and storms out, leaving Gavin devastated. Gavin tries to reach Dahlia and Susan but can't get in touch with either of them. He feels lost and heartbroken about Melissa. Later, after getting off a plane, Gavin unexpectedly runs into Dahlia, who tells him that she won't be joining the show because her own show got picked up. Gavin goes to speak with John, who had previously worked with Dahlia. John reveals that Susan knew about everything from the start, leaving Gavin even more confused. Determined to get answers, Gavin confronts Susan at a UTA party. As he pressures her for the truth, she finally admits that she did it all to save him from Melissa, who she believed was holding him back. In a fit of anger, Gavin slaps Susan across the face, but before he leaves, she whispers something in his ear. Gavin steps outside, waiting at a traffic light, and tells the screen to "F off," declaring that he's no longer their puppet. A woman nearby asks if he's okay, but Gavin suddenly realizes he's completely alone. As he looks around, he notices a number 9 hovering above him, while everyone else has a number 7 over their heads. Meanwhile, Gary, another character, talks to Margaret and asks if he's dead or trapped in hell. Margaret explains that Gary is a multidimensional being with infinite power. She reveals that Gary created the world he's living in, but Gary doesn't believe her. He walks away, still unsure of his reality. Gabriel, a video game designer, is on vacation with his wife Mary and their daughter Noelle. As they stroll through the fields, Noelle, who is mute, uses sign language to ask her mother if she can have an ice cream later. Mary tells her that she's already had one, but Noelle convinces Gabriel, who promises her ice cream once they get to the city. When they reach their parked car, Mary and Noelle hop inside, but the car won't start. Gabriel realizes they're stranded in the middle of nowhere. He decides to leave his family behind to walk down the road and find a better signal on his phone so he can contact a mechanic for help. On his journey, Gabriel meets a woman who, like him, has no cell signal. She points him toward a place where he might find help. Gabriel asks if she can give him a ride to a gas station, but she hesitates, worried that he might be a threat. Gabriel explains the situation and shows her his ID. She assures him she will send help and leaves. Feeling hopeless, Gabriel starts heading back to his family. Meanwhile, Mary and Noelle are in the car, watching videos on a digital camera. Noelle is confused when she sees a video of Gabriel talking to someone named Melissa and a woman named Margaret talking to someone else, but she shows it to Mary, who is also puzzled. Suddenly, Noelle spots Gabriel in the distance, but she's unsure if he's following her. However, the woman, now introduced as Sierra, says she was only making sure Gabriel wasn't a threat. She then offers him a ride to the gas station. As they walk, Gabriel stops to tighten his shoelaces, and Sierra confesses that she recognized him from a video game magazine her boyfriend reads. She wasn't sure at first, but now remembers seeing his photo. Back at the car, Noelle continues watching the digital camera and sees strange videos that make her even more confused. Gabriel, meanwhile, is starting to feel ill. Sierra has secretly drugged his water with GHB Sierra, as well as other characters like Sarah and Susan, has been trying to separate Gabriel from his family. She believes this is an intervention. aiming to help Gabriel realize the truth. He isn't human, but a divine being who has taken on human forms for over 4,000 years. She compares Gabriel's situation to being addicted to video games, living in a false reality. Sierra tells Gabriel that he is needed back home, a place beyond human understanding which cannot be imagined or described. Eventually, Gabriel returns to the car where his family waits. Mary senses that Gabriel has come to terms with the truth and tells him it's time to go. Gabriel explains that there are 90 versions of the universe, and this is the last one. He removes a green string from his wrist, and as he does, the universe changes. The story ends with a new reality, where Melissa McCarthy's character, now married to Ben, whom she married in part 2, has Noelle as her daughter. Noelle tells her mother he's not coming back, and that he put all the pieces together. Mary finishes her daughter's sentence saying, "This is the best of all possible worlds." And to enter a new world and a new story, click on my recommendations on the right. Don't forget to subscribe to return for future recaps. Grab your popcorn, enjoy yourself, and see you soon, my friend.